She didn't scream. She didn't leave a note. She was just gone. In the summer of 2001, a 7-year-old girl vanished without a trace during a community parade in Bangor, Maine. For over 2 decades, her face lived only on missing posters, forgotten news clippings, and the fading memories of a mother who never gave up. But then, 23 years later, someone noticed something strange. In the background of a small-town newspaper article, a blurry photo, a brass tag, and a young woman with eyes that didn't belong there. What if the girl who vanished had never really left? Before we begin, tell me in the comments, have you ever seen something hiding in plain sight and didn't realize it until it was too late? Now, take a deep breath and come with me to a quiet town in Maine, where the past never really sleeps. People don't just vanish, not without leaving something behind. That was the first line written in Lily Warren's notebook the day she stepped into the crumbling archives of the Bangor Daily News. It was the last week of October in Bangor, Maine. The cold had begun to bite, but it hadn't yet snowed. Streets were covered in damp yellow leaves. The air was full of the scent of wet paper, chimney smoke, and decaying wood. And something else, something unspoken. Inside the small brick building that used to be the main press office of your daily news, time had stopped in 2007. The lights flickered as if unsure whether to stay on or give up completely. A slow drip echoed from the back hallway. The silence here wasn't just stillness. It was loaded, heavy. Like a library, no one dared to read. Lily Warren pushed the old wooden door open with her shoulder. Dust exploded from the hinges. Her boots creaked on the floorboards. She let the door close slowly behind her. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with tall filing cabinets, stacks of bound newspapers, and old office chairs with wheels missing. She didn't call out. She wasn't here to be seen. Lily was 31, but her eyes looked older, sharpened by years of staring at crime reports, dead ends, and empty houses. Her hair was tied in a careless bun under a gray wool beanie. Her hands were steady. Her heart, not so much. In her satchel, she carried 3 things: a digital recorder, a photo of a girl missing since 2001, and a letter from her late father, a retired journalist, that ended with, "If you ever feel like something doesn't make sense, go look where nobody has." The girl in the photo was Emily Harper, last seen at a 4th of July parade in 2001. She was 7 years old, wearing a white tank top with blue stars and a red ribbon in her hair. That ribbon had never been found. Neither had Emily. The case had been cold for 2 decades. No suspects, no body, just a grieving mother, a father who drank himself into silence, and a tiny photograph that Lily couldn't stop looking at. Not because she had covered the case, but because she remembered the girl. They weren't friends. But Lily remembered seeing her once, playing near the local market. She had noticed the ribbon. And then she was gone. For years, Lily had read every article, every police statement. She wasn't supposed to get attached, but some stories find a way to follow you, like they're not finished with you yet. Today she had come here chasing something stupid, a gut feeling. She had been combing through local archives, following up on a different case when she came across something odd. A community spotlight column from 2017. A volunteer fair. In the background of one of the photos was a young woman, half-turned, blurry. Most people wouldn't notice. But Lily stopped breathing the second she saw the photo. It was the eyes, the nose, the slant of the chin, and most of all, the ribbon. A faint trace of red fabric peeking out from her jacket. Lily had printed the photo and compared it to every childhood image of Emily Harper she could find. It wasn't definitive, but her instincts screamed. "You're looking at her," they said. "She didn't vanish. She grew up." But how? And why would no one recognize her? That's what brought Lily here, to the only place that might still hold unscanned versions of the photos submitted by locals in 2017. If she could find the original image, a clearer version, she could try facial recognition. She could run a background. She could prove what no one else ever had, that Emily Harper was still alive. The archives were barely marked. The drawers hadn't been opened in years. Most were rusted shut. The room smelled of mildew and ink and rotting cellulose. She pulled open a drawer labeled 2016 to 2018 local events and began flipping through envelopes of negatives and clippings. Each one was labeled with a date, some handwritten, some typed. She scanned quickly. One envelope caught her eye, July 8, 2017, Volunteer Fair, Bangor Community Center. Her pulse quickened. She opened it. There were 2 photos, both grainy, but one, the one she saw online, was clearer now. The woman in the background was facing just enough for the light to hit her cheek. Lily zoomed in with her phone. She cropped it, enhanced contrast, and then she froze. There was a tag on the woman's jacket, brass, with a number 43. That same number had appeared in a report from 2001. A daycare worker had mentioned a girl named M, who always insisted on wearing her lucky number, 43. Nobody had taken it seriously, just a child's game, until now. Lily backed away from the table. Her breathing was shallow. Her hand trembled. She looked around the room. Suddenly everything felt too quiet, too still. She shut the envelope and shoved it into her bag. Before she left, she looked at the photo one more time. In the far background, behind the girl, stood a woman in sunglasses and a nurse's uniform, and Lily recognized her too. It was the same woman from the obituary section of that week's paper. Margaret Stone, Emily's great-aunt, died in 2020, lived alone, no children. No visitors, except maybe one. Outside, the rain had begun to fall. Lily walked to her car, gripping her bag tight. She turned the ignition, but didn't start driving. She sat in silence, watching drops hit the windshield, one after the other, and did. A memory came back, faint, from years ago. A day in July, a woman in a white nurse's dress, and a little girl, with a ribbon, being led away from the crowd. No one had looked twice. No one had asked questions. And Lily had been just. But now she wasn't. Now she would ask every question. Now she would not stop, because Emily Harper might still be out there, because someone had raised her, because someone had lied, and because somewhere, in the shadow of a quiet town, a woman who vanished had never really left. Lily Warren had never liked cameras. Even as a child, she'd shy away from photos, hide behind chairs, tilt her head just enough to blur the shot, not out of shyness, but because every photo felt like a trap. A moment frozen forever, whether you wanted it or not. Maybe that's why she became so good at noticing what others missed. Not the subjects, the backgrounds, the corners, the reflections. It wasn't the faces in the photo that mattered. It was what they didn't know they were standing next to. Lily was born in 1993 in Bangor, Maine, 2 years after her older sister, Jessica. Their childhood was ordinary, at least until the day it wasn't. Jessica disappeared in 2001. She was 10. Lily was 8. One moment they were at the local park. The next, Jessica was gone. Vanished during a game of hide-and-seek. There were no screams, no signs of struggle, just a missing child and a silent town, and a family that would never recover. Lily's father, Richard Warren, was a reporter. He covered small politics and local crime for decades. When Jessica disappeared, he quit the newsroom, but never stopped investigating. Every wall in the house became a caseboard. Maps, red string, timelines. He told Lily bedtime stories about truth and justice instead of fairy tales. And she listened, always. He taught her how to read people, how to notice inconsistencies, how to ask better questions. But most of all, he taught her how to never give up. He died of a heart attack in 2019, surrounded by unopened boxes, cold leads, and a single note taped to his computer monitor. Some answers are waiting for the right person to ask. After he died, Lily inherited everything. His boxes, his notebooks, his guilt. Her mother, Claire, moved to Florida and never looked back. She refused to speak of Jessica, refused to keep photos in the house. "She's gone," Claire would say. "She's not coming back. Don't ruin your life chasing ghosts." But Lily never believed that, because she remembered something nobody else did. The last thing Jessica said before running off that day, "I think someone's watching us." Lily grew up. She went to Boston University on a scholarship, majored in journalism, then returned to Bangor, not because she loved the town, but because it still held answers. She became a freelancer. She didn't work for big outlets. She wasn't interested in fluff pieces. She dug into cold cases, persons, and community stories that nobody cared about anymore. Every morning she drank her coffee black, reread an old case, and circled details in red ink. Every evening she walked the old paths Jessica once played on, listening for anything that might have been missed. She lived alone, in a small apartment above a bakery. The smell of bread was constant, warm, reminding her that life went on. On her desk sat 3 framed items, a newspaper clipping from 2001. Local girl vanishes in broad daylight. A photo of her and Jessica, aged 6 and 8, holding sparklers on the 4th of July. And a brass tag. Number 43, identical to the one in the photo she'd found last week. She'd found the tag in one of her father's boxes. It was scratched, worn, but unmistakable. She didn't know what it meant yet, but she would. The day after finding the clearer version of the newspaper photo, Lily called in a favor. She met with Detective Samuel Ruiz, a friend of her father's. He'd retired early but had access to old police files. He still owed Richard Warren more than one favor. They met at a diner on State Street. Sam was 60, heavy-set, and still wore his badge around his neck like a ghost of his past. He looked at the photo. He looked again, and his face changed. "You found this in the paper?" he asked. Lily nodded. July 8, 2017. Community Volunteer Fair. "That's Margaret Stone," he muttered, tapping the woman in the background. Emily's great-aunt, but she was ruled out, said she hadn't seen Emily in years. "And the girl?" He hesitated. "Could be her. Jesus." That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, headphones on, listening to her own recorded notes. If this is Emily Harper, she was alive in 2017. That's 16 years after her disappearance. No ransom, no contact, no sightings, just that photo. And now Margaret's dead, but if Emily's alive, who else knows? The lights in her apartment flickered. The heater clicked on. The wind moaned against the window. And Lily realized she wasn't just chasing a lead. She was opening something no one wanted opened. She made a list. Check the records of the Bangor Community Center. Find out who submitted the photo in 2017. Revisit the police files on Emily Harper. Investigate Margaret Stone's estate. Identify the tag number 43 and its origin. And finally, find out who the girl in the photo really is. The next morning, Lily visited the community center. The building hadn't changed in years, still painted in chipping blue and white, still with the faded mural of kids holding hands around the earth. She met with April Jennings, the volunteer coordinator in 2017. April was in her 40s, friendly, talkative. She remembered the fair. "We had tons of kids, families, some photographers showed up for local coverage." Lily showed her the photo. "Wow, that's from that day. I think Max Griffin took that one. He was doing a feature on Bangor's youth programs." Max Griffin. She'd heard the name. He was a freelance photographer, worked mostly weddings, sports, local events. Quiet, private. She got his number. Later that day, she called him. "Hi, Max. This is Lily Warren. I'm a journalist." Click. He hung up. She called again. No answer. Then an email. "I'm not interested. Don't contact me again." That was a red flag. Nobody refuses to talk about a volunteer fair unless they have something to hide. Lily drove to Max's listed address, a quiet house near the woods, no car in the driveway, no lights on. She left a note. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to know the truth," and taped a copy of the photo to his door. As she turned to leave, she saw movement. A curtain fluttered. Someone had been watching. Back at home, Lily reviewed her father's old files. To her surprise, he had included Margaret Stone in a suspect list, dated 2002. Next to her name, he'd written, "Access to Emily. Yes, alibi, thin motive." But something doesn't sit right. Under that, a post-it note. "Check her employment history. Nurse, where?" Lily opened her laptop, searched Margaret Stone, Sequoia Nurse Puss, Maine. And there it was. She'd worked at a private elder care home just outside of Bangor until 2003. The same year, the investigation into Emily Harper went cold. At that moment, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She answered. "Stop digging." Voice. Deep, calm, male. "You're chasing something that doesn't want to be found." Click. The call ended, and Lily sat still, hands clenched, heart pounding. Not from fear, from confirmation. Someone was watching her, and someone wanted this story to stay buried. It started with the ribbon. Again. 3 days after Lily received the anonymous call, she found it in her mailbox, wrapped inside a plain white envelope. No return address, no note, just a single, folded red ribbon. Frayed at the edges, worn, old. She didn't have to guess what it meant. It was Emily's, or meant to be. And whoever sent it knew where she lived. She didn't call the police, not yet. Because she didn't trust them, not after what she'd seen buried in her father's notes. There had been mistakes in the original investigation, sloppy follow-ups, missing statements. A photo that disappeared from the evidence locker in 2003. Her father had circled one name repeatedly, Officer Brad Kendricks. He was the responding officer when Emily Harper vanished, and now, 2 decades later, he was a sergeant. Lily made a copy of the ribbon, sealed the original in a plastic bag, logged the time, wrote everything down, and then she went back to her father's office. The key was in the filing cabinet under the floorboard, the drawer labeled H Files. Inside were boxes for Harper, Emily Harper, Susan, mother, Stone, Margaret, aunt, Kendricks, Brad, officer, and a folder labeled simply Second Girl. Lily's pulse rose. She pulled it out. Inside were clippings, printed emails, and 2 blurry photos. The articles were about a girl named Nora Watkins, who vanished in 1994 at age 6 from a town 50 miles away, Millinocket, Maine. The case was never solved. The odd part? She looked like Emily. Her case file mentioned a woman matching Margaret Stone's description spotted near the park where Nora vanished, and her family never received closure. The handwriting on one of the notes read, "What if Emily wasn't the first?" The idea chilled Lily. What if Margaret Stone had taken more than one girl? What if Emily wasn't kidnapped, but raised as someone else's child? And what if someone helped cover it up? She needed to know more about Margaret. So she drove to the assisted living home where Margaret worked back in the early 2000s. The place had changed names, but the building was the same, an aging structure with peeling white siding and a gravel parking lot. She didn't have an appointment, so she posed as someone researching a book on elder care history. The receptionist, an older woman named Janice, agreed to speak. Margaret? Oh, yeah. Worked here a few years. Quiet. Kind of odd. Liked her routines. Did she ever have visitors? Lily asked. Janice paused. Rarely, but once I remember a little girl came with her, maybe 4 or 5. Margaret said it was her niece. Real polite. Quiet, though, never smiled. Do you remember when that was? Early 2003. I remember because it was right before she quit suddenly. No notice. Why'd she quit? Janice frowned. No idea. One day she was here. The next, she wasn't. Back in her car, Lily stared at her notebook. 2003. The year Emily Harper's case went cold. The year Margaret Stone left her job. The year the brass tag disappeared from evidence. None of this was coincidence. She returned home and searched for the name Nora Watkins. She found an old forum post from 2009, archived. A user named C. Watkins 1949 had written, "If you're reading this, Nora, your name might not be Nora anymore, but I still remember the way you hugged me before the bus. If someone took you, please know I never." It was posted under a missing persons list, but Lily couldn't stop staring at the username, C. Watkins. She ran it through a public database. A woman named Carol Watkins, born 1949, still lived in Millinocket. The next morning, Lily drove the 90 minutes to the small town. Millinocket was even quieter than Bangor. Just a few main streets, a gas station, a post office. The kind of place where strangers were noticed. Carol Watkins lived in a modest one-story home with sun-faded siding and a wind chime on the porch. Lily knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Finally, the door opened a crack. A woman, late 70s, with sharp eyes and white hair, peeked through. "Yes?" Lily introduced herself gently, mentioned she was researching cold case. The door opened wider. Carol's hands trembled slightly. "I figured no one would ever come again." They sat at her kitchen table. The walls were lined with photos. A few of Nora, frozen at age 6. Carol poured tea slowly. "They told me to move on, that sometimes kids just wander off, but Nora didn't wander. She was careful. She never left the yard." "Was she ever seen again?" Carol nodded. "One sighting. A waitress in Bangor said she saw a girl matching her photo. This was 2002. She said the girl was with an older woman, called her Aunt Maggie." Lily's heart stopped. Aunt Maggie, Margaret Stone. Carol leaned in. "I always wondered if maybe she was taken to raise, like a child someone lost. I know that sounds mad." "It's not mad," Lily. She left with Carol's permission to take a copy of Nora's photo. It was grainy. But something about the eyes. Lily held it next to the photo from the newspaper, and suddenly something clicked. They were the same girl. Later that night, Lily couldn't sleep. She sat on her couch, photos spread across the table. The ribbon, the tag, the timeline. Her phone buzzed. Blocked number. She answered. This time, a woman's voice. "You need to stop." "Who are you?" Silence. Then, "Some girls don't want to be found. Some girls don't know they're missing." Click. Lily stared at her screen. The voice had sounded young, early 20s, shaky, like someone being watched. What if it was her? What if Emily had called, or Nora, or whatever name she now used? 3 hours later, Lily received an email. No subject, no text, just an attachment, a scanned photo. 3 girls standing in front of a cabin. Summer, probably late 90s. One of them was Jessica. The second, unknown. The third, Emily Harper. And on the back of the image, barely visible, Camp Windfall, 1999, last summer before it all changed. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Her sister, Emily, and someone else, together, before either of them vanished. She flipped the photo under a bright light. There, faint and written in blue pen, "They took her because she remembered." The photo changed everything. Lily had stared at it for hours, as if willing the figures to speak. 3 girls, smiling, a lake behind them, a wooden sign half visible in the corner, Camp Windfall. Jessica, Emily, and a third girl she couldn't identify, on the back. They took her because she remembered. The handwriting wasn't her father's, it wasn't her mother's, but it looked vaguely familiar, and that terrified her. She drove to the Bangor Public Library the next morning, searching for any records on Camp Windfall. She'd never heard of it. No website, no reviews, no listings in summer camp directories. But she found a mention in an old 1999 newsletter. Camp Windfall will reopen this July for its final season for girls ages 6 to 12. Location: Sebec Lake, Maine. She zoomed in on the bottom. The camp was owned by a private foundation. Name: Golden Pines Family Trust. Director: Catherine Boyd. Lily copied it all. Another connection to Chase. Sebec Lake was 2 hours away. Lily packed her gear and left by noon. The roads narrowed. Towns disappeared. By late afternoon, she reached a rusted gate marked Private Property. She parked, hiked in. The camp was abandoned, cabins rotting. But the sign was still there. Camp Windfall, the same one in the photo. She wandered until she found cabin number 3. Inside, dust and pine needles covered the floor. Spiderwebs draped corners like curtains. And then, on the wall, names, carved by hand: Jessica, Emily, and another, Maddie R. Lily took a photo. That was the third girl. Maddie R., born in Maine, aged 6 to 10 in 1999. She found 5 possible matches. One stood out: Madeline Reese, born 1991, now 33. Last known address: Augusta, ME, no social media, no job listings, just a P.O. box. She returned to Bangor restless. She called Detective Ruiz. Ever hear of Camp Windfall? Silence then. No. Why? I think Jessica was there, Emily too, and another girl, Maddie Reese. Something happened there. That camp's not in any police records. Exactly. That night, Lily dreamed of her sister. Jessica standing by a lake holding a sparkler. She turned, smiled, then whispered, "You're getting close, but be careful who you trust." Lily woke in a cold sweat. She visited Susan Harper, Emily's mother. The woman lived in a small house in Orono. Time had weathered her. Blankets covered windows, mail piled by the door. Susan answered wearing a robe, her eyes empty. But when Lily showed her the camp photo, something changed. "Where did you get this?" "A tip. That's Emily, right?" Susan stared. "I told the police, back in 2001. I told them she went to a camp, that she came back different." She wouldn't talk about it. She was scared, woke up screaming, wouldn't sleep in her room. Did she mention Jessica? Or Maddie? Susan nodded slowly. She said, "Jessica saw something." "What?" "I don't know. Just that Jessica saw and tried to tell." That's all Emily would say. "Why didn't you push the police?" "I tried, but the camp was closed. The trust didn't respond. They said Emily was just traumatized." Susan broke down crying. "I failed her. I let her go that summer. I thought it'd be good for her." Back home, Lily replayed everything. Emily returned from Camp Windfall afraid. Jessica saw something there. Maddie Reese has never spoken publicly. Margaret Stone somehow gained access to Emily afterward, and now someone doesn't want this camp remembered. She dug into the Golden Pines Family Trust, shell company, owned by a now-defunct corporation in Delaware. No clear board, no listed assets. But Catherine Boyd, the listed director, was real. A retired social worker. Now 76, living in Portland. Lily called. Pretended to be a graduate student doing research. Catherine agreed to meet at a small cafe. She arrived neatly dressed, calm, almost too calm. Lily showed her the camp photo. Catherine smiled faintly. "I remember them. Good girls, smart. Do you know what happened to them? I remember the summer Jessica stopped showing up." "Stopped?" Catherine sipped her tea. "I don't know what you're implying." That camp disappeared. The girls came back changed. One is missing. One was taken in. One hasn't spoken. Why? Because the world is cruel. Did something happen there? "Miss Warren, some things are better left alone." She stood to leave. Slipped Lily a folded note. "If you want the truth, look where it started, the woods behind cabin 3, but don't go alone." That night Lily couldn't eat. She packed flashlights, her recorder, gloves, and printed maps. She emailed Detective Ruiz. "Going back to Camp Windfall tomorrow morning. Something's buried there." Literally. She returned at dawn, alone. The woods were quiet. No birds, just wind and trees. She found Cabin 3 again. Behind it, an old trail. Faint, overgrown. She followed it. 30 minutes in, the ground changed, soggy, uneven. Then she saw it, a cross, nailed to a tree. No name, just a date, July 12th, 2001. Jessica vanished July 10th. She dropped to her knees, digging frantically. A few inches down, a box. Inside, a broken plastic bracelet, a folded piece of paper, and a small pink sneaker. She gasped. It was Jessica's. She opened the paper. One line. "They said she was lying, so they made her disappear." Lily collapsed. She sobbed until her hands shook. She had found proof. She had found Jessica's last trace, and someone had hidden it for 20 years. She called Ruiz. He answered breathless. "You were right." I looked deeper into Brad Kendricks. He filed the final report on Jessica. But his notes were copied from an earlier file, word for word, except for the date. Meaning? Meaning he reused an old template. The original file was about a different girl, one from 1994. Nora Watkins. Exactly. The case was closed the same way. Vanishing. No struggle. No leads. Lily stared at the box again. Someone had used the same method to close multiple cases. And the common thread was clear. Camp Windfall Officer Kendricks, Margaret Stone, and now the Golden Pines Trust. The pattern wasn't coincidence. It was a system. Back at home, she received another email. No text, just one attachment. Security footage, dated last week. It showed a woman walking past a gas station camera, wearing a hoodie, brass tag clipped to her bag. Number 43. She turned briefly toward the camera. It was her. Emily Harper. Alive! Lily watched the footage over and over again. The frame was grainy but unmistakable. Emily Harper, older, slim, hair darker now, walking past a gas station on the edge of Bangor. Date stamp. 3 days ago. She paused, looked at the camera, just long enough. The brass tag was visible on her bag. Number 43. She wasn't hiding. She was sending a message. Lily called Detective Ruiz. "I need access to surveillance near Route 9. That's where she was. I'm on it." "But Lily, this means she's not in danger. She's choosing not to come forward." Or someone's making her believe it's safer that way. You really think, after 20 years, she's still under someone's thumb? I think someone raised her to believe that silence is love. She drove to the gas station, talked to the clerk, showed the photo. "Yeah, she was in here. Bought water, granola bar, didn't say much." "Did she leave on foot?" "No, got in a blue SUV. Older model, main plates." "Do you remember the driver?" He hesitated. "Man, maybe 50. Gray beard. Looked ex-military." Lily returned home and stared at her wall of notes. Blue SUV, tag 43, Margaret Stone, gone. Catherine Boyd, warning her. Kendricks, falsified reports. Then she remembered something in her father's notebook, a sketch of a blue Ford Bronco, next to a name, Dean. She looked it up. Dean Shepard, former counselor at Camp Windfall. Left the program in 2000, no address, but listed as family associate of Margaret Stone. She searched property records and found it. Shepard owned a remote cabin off Route 116 in the woods, no neighbors. She sent Ruiz the location. "I'm going in. Wait for me." "If I wait, we lose her." "Lily." She hung up. It was dusk when she arrived. The cabin was silent, set back from the road, a blue Bronco parked in the weeds. Lily left her car and approached on foot. No lights on. She circled the property. A light flickered in the back, a basement window partly curtained. She crept closer. Inside, a woman sat at a desk, writing. Lily's breath caught. It was Emily. She tapped the glass. Emily looked up, startled, paused, then slowly stood. She didn't look scared. She looked resigned. She opened the door for Lily. Inside, the basement was clean, organized. There were books, food, even an old piano in the corner. Emily motioned for silence. Then she spoke. "I knew someone would come. I was hoping it'd be you." "Emily, are you okay?" "I'm not Emily." Lily blinked. "What? That's not my real name. It never was." "But your mother, Susan, I don't remember her, not really. I remember the ribbon. I remember the lake. I remember the screaming." "Jessica?" Emily closed her eyes. "She found me behind cabin 3, crying. He had taken me into the woods. She pulled me away. She said she'd tell someone. She did tell someone." "I know. That's why she disappeared." Lily sat, stunned. "You mean, Dean Shepherd?" Emily nodded. "He told me Jessica ran away. But I saw her that night. She tried to fight him. He hit her. Then I never saw her again." "He killed her?" Emily didn't answer. She just looked away. "Why didn't you ever tell?" "He told me I'd go to jail, that they'd think it was my fault, that I was a bad girl. And when my aunt took me in, she told me it was safer to forget." "Margaret knew?" "Of course. She raised me." Lily was shaking. "You were never missing. You were hidden. I believed I was being protected. You were being silenced." Emily whispered. "Sometimes silence feels safer than truth." Footsteps upstairs. Emily froze. "He's back. We need to go now." Emily hesitated. "There's something I need to show you first." She opened a closet. Inside, a lockbox. Inside the box, dozens of photos. A tape recorder, a folder labeled Windfall 1998-2001. Lily opened it. Children's names, ages, notes, some crossed out, others circled. And one file, Jessica Warren, marked Complication. The door upstairs creaked. They grabbed what they could, ran out the back. They reached Lily's car just as the Bronco's headlights flared on. A man appeared in the cabin doorway, gray-beard, tall, holding a shotgun, Dean Shepherd. He saw Lily, then saw Emily, and froze. Emily stepped forward. "It's over." He didn't move, but he didn't follow. They drove through the night, Emily silent, Lily recording everything. They stopped at a rest stop outside Bangor. Ruiz was waiting. Emily turned to Lily. "Will they believe me?" "They will now." But as Ruiz took Emily into protective custody, Lily felt her world crack. Because inside the Windfall folder, she'd found another name, one circled in red, marked Survived, Relocated, Name Changed. And next to it, Madeline Reese. Her current identity? Lily Warren. Her real name wasn't Lily. She wasn't Jessica's sister. She was the third girl, the one in the photo, the one who forgot, the one who lived. Lily sat alone in her apartment. No lights on. No music, just the sound of her own breathing. In front of her were two things: a photo of Jessica Warren, age 10, holding hands with two girls. A birth certificate issued in 1991. Name, Madeline Reese. Father unknown. Mother, Abigail Reese. Died 1997. Placed in foster care, 1998. Disappeared, 1999. Declared dead, 2000. And now, sitting in a dark room in 2025, she finally knew the truth. She wasn't Lily. She wasn't even a Warren. Detective Ruiz had delivered the final confirmation. DNA matched. The files recovered from Dean Shepherd's basement cross-referenced perfectly. After Madeline Reese disappeared, she was quietly reassigned by Margaret Stone to the Warren family, whose real second daughter had died in infancy. Richard Warren, grief-stricken and desperate to help someone, had accepted her. Never told Claire. He raised Madeline as Lily, loved her like his own, but always kept one foot in the past, investigating cases that pointed back to the one place he feared, Camp Windfall. Lily, no, Madeline, had grown up believing in justice, believing in Jessica. And now she realized Jessica had saved her, at the cost of her own life. She visited her mother, not Abigail, Claire, the woman who raised her. Claire opened the door slowly. "Lily." "That's not my name." Claire closed her eyes. "I was going to tell you, when the time was right." When? After my life collapsed? After I found Jessica's shoe in a box in the woods? She wasn't supposed to die. He said she ran away. Richard believed him, but I always wondered. You lied to me my whole life, Claire. I didn't know what else to do. You were broken, small, so scared, but you were mine. From the moment I saw you. I wasn't a replacement, Claire. No, you were a miracle. Lily didn't hug her, but she didn't walk away either. Emily, now under protective care, wrote Lily a letter. "I'm not ready to speak publicly, but you should. You were brave enough to dig. I wasn't. Jessica saved both of us. You became her voice. I'll never forget that." The letter ended with a sketch. 3 girls by a lake, smiling. Lily sat with Ruiz at Jessica's grave. She hadn't been there in years. The stone was simple. Jessica Warren, 1991-2001. Loved, brave, never forgotten. Lily placed a photo beside the stone, the one from camp. She remembered everything, she whispered, and because she remembered, they took her. Ruiz stood silently. You cracked something no one else could. You gave her peace. Not yet, but I will. Susan Harper held Lily's hand tightly when they met again. I saw you once, Susan said, at the market when you were 10. I thought I was going crazy. You looked just like Emily's friend from camp. I was. And now I know who I am. Do you know what you want? Lily thought for a moment. To tell her story. All of it. The next week, Lily submitted a 12-part investigative series to the Bangor Daily News. Title, Windfall, The Forgotten Girls. Names were named. Files were scanned, photos published, and at the end of the final article, Jessica Warren was not a runaway. She was a witness. She was a sister. She was the reason I'm alive. People wrote in by the hundreds. Some remembered Camp Windfall. Some had their own buried memories. Others simply said, now I understand why my sister changed after that summer. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for not letting her be forgotten. Emily moved to a quiet town in Oregon, started therapy, began painting again. Carol Watkins, mother of Nora, finally received closure. I never knew what happened to my daughter, she told Lily, but I know she saved others, and for that I can breathe again. Lily changed her name legally to Lily Reese. She kept both names. Because they both mattered, because Jessica gave her one, and Madeline survived the other. She received a call one morning from an unknown number, a girl's voice, soft, young. I think I was at Windfall too. My name's Hannah. I remember you. Can we talk? Lily closed her eyes. Yes, we can. The photo had once haunted her. The blurred face, the brass tag, the shadow of someone half-turned toward a future they hadn't chosen. Now, Lily Reese kept that photo framed above her desk. Not to remember what was lost, but to honor what was found. It had been 6 months since the final article was published, 6 months since the story of Camp Windfall broke open, 6 months since the calls started. There were now 12 confirmed survivors, women in their 20s and 30s, each with fragments, each with nightmares, and each slowly reclaiming a voice. They had started a foundation, the Windfall Project. Lily didn't run it. She didn't want credit. But she was the reason it existed. The Bangor Daily News gave her a permanent column. She declined. Instead, she published under one name only, Jessica's sister. Every week she walked by the old gas station on Route 9. The camera that captured Emily was gone now, replaced by a newer model, but Lily always paused, because that camera had seen the truth before anyone else did. And sometimes the things in the background are the ones that matter most. One afternoon, while cleaning her father's office, she found a note. folded behind a drawer. It was dated 2002, written in his handwriting. I don't know how to tell her she's not ours, but she's everything good we ever did. And one day, she'll find the truth. I only hope it doesn't break her. But maybe. She cried for the man who gave her a name, and for the girl who gave her a life. Emily wrote occasionally. Short messages. I started therapy. Odd, I painted that lake. I met a girl who remembered me. Her name is Rosie. I'm okay, Lily replied each time. I'm proud of you. We were there. We came back. Jessica would be proud too. One gray morning, Lily visited Jessica's grave again. The air was cold, the sky the color of ash. She placed a new photo beside the headstone. The original camp photo, restored. 3 girls, 1 story. She knelt. I finally remember everything. She paused. I carry it now, so they don't have to. That evening, she received one final envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a page torn from an old composition book, written in childlike handwriting. I saw her take the ribbon off. She said it was lucky. Then she said, "Don't forget me." So I didn't. Signed, J. No one ever figured out who sent it. Maybe it was buried in a box for 20 years. Maybe someone else had been remembering too. Maybe Jessica's voice never really left. Lily placed the page in a frame. Next to it, the ribbon. Next to the ribbon, the brass tag. And beneath it all, a single line, handwritten in pencil. She didn't vanish. She lived. And because of her, so did I. That night, the wind rattled the windows. The heater clicked on. Somewhere, a song played on an old radio. And for the first time in years, Lily Reese slept without waking, because the truth had finally, and the girl who vanished had finally come home.